My friends, there comes a moment in every life when the mirror of time stands before us, not to frighten us, but to awaken us. As the hair turns gray and the steps become slower, God whispers a message, not of fear, but of awakening. He reminds us that old age is not a shadow creeping in. It is a sacred chapter where truth becomes clearer, purpose becomes sharper, and the heart finally learns what truly matters. In these years, we are called not to retreat from life, but to rise with a deeper wisdom, to teach, to forgive, to love with a courage we once believed was reserved only for our youth. For old age is not a warning of the end. It is God's invitation to live with greater meaning, greater compassion, and greater strength than ever before. Old age arrives gently at first, like the soft fading of daylight, and then more certainly reminding us that life is a precious gift that must never be taken for granted. It is not a burden, nor is it a sentence to loneliness or decline. Rather, it is a sacred whisper from God, telling us that we have been granted time to reflect, time to heal, time to love, time to live with deeper intention. When the body begins to slow and the energy of youth seems distant, that is the moment when God calls us to see life not through the eyes of urgency, but through the eyes of gratitude. Every sunrise becomes a blessing, every conversation a treasure, every breath a testimony that we still have purpose left on this earth. In our younger years, we often rush through life chasing dreams, achievements, and recognition, believing that we have endless tomorrows. But as age sets in, God gently removes the illusion of infinity and reveals the truth. Every moment is a divine opportunity. Old age is His reminder to value the smallest gestures, the warmth of a hand held in compassion, the quiet peace of a shared smile, the wisdom spoken in silence. When we reach this chapter of life, we begin to understand that it is not the speed of our steps that matters, but the meaning behind them. It is not the volume of our voice, but the sincerity of our words. In these later years, God urges us to live not with regret, but with renewed purpose. He nudges us to mend what is broken, to forgive what once hurt us, and to embrace the people around us with a heart cleansed of bitterness. Old age becomes the season where we finally realize that the greatest wealth we possess is the time we are still given. We come to appreciate the memories that shaped us, the lessons that strengthened us, and the challenges that humbled us. And in this understanding we find peace. Even as the body weakens, the soul grows stronger. The spirit becomes clearer, more resilient, more connected to something greater than itself. God does not warn us to fear old age. He warns us to recognize its worth. He reminds us that every year lived is a chapter of victory, survival, and grace. And in this awareness we discover a deeper joy, the joy of being alive, the joy of having a story worth telling, the joy of knowing that our journey still carries meaning. Old age is God's invitation to slow down, not because we are nearing the end, but because we are finally ready to understand the beauty of life. It is His way of telling us that we are still needed, still valued, still capable of touching hearts and shaping the world with the wisdom we have earned. Through gratitude and purpose, we transform these years into a testament of strength, faith, and grace. As the years pass and life begins to slow its pace, God places a divine responsibility upon the shoulders of those who have walked long and far. Old age is not merely a season of rest. It is a sacred calling to become a guiding light for the generations that follow. The wisdom carried by the elderly is not an accident. Every hardship, every triumph, every tear, every victory was allowed by God so that those who reach this stage may hold in their hearts the lessons that younger souls have not yet lived long enough to understand. The youth may carry strength, ambition, and energy, but the elderly carry vision, perspective, and truth, treasures that cannot be bought or taught in a moment. God reminds every elder that the world needs their voice. Their stories are not simply memories, they are instructions for the future. The paths they have walked become signposts for the young, warning them of dangers, guiding them toward better choices, encouraging them to rise above the challenges of their time. When the elders speak, they do not speak from theory, they speak from life, and that experience is a gift meant to uplift, not to be hidden away. In the eyes of younger generations, elders become living maps, pointing toward a wiser, more compassionate way of living. And yet, too often the elderly are tempted to step back, believing that their time of influence has passed. God warns against this silence. He calls upon them to stand firm in their purpose, to understand that their presence still shapes families, communities, and even nations. The young need mentors, not critics. They need guidance rooted in love, not judgment born of frustration. Elders carry the responsibility of nurturing with patience, of teaching with humility, and of correcting with gentleness. Their wisdom is not a weapon, it is a lantern that lights the path for those who come after them. This responsibility does not demand perfection, it simply asks for honesty. Young people look to their elders not for flawless lives, but for courage. Courage to admit mistakes, to share lessons learned, to reveal the strength it took to rise again after each fall. When elders speak openly about their struggles, they offer the young the greatest gift of all, understanding that resilience is possible, that endurance is noble, and that faith is powerful. God calls elders to be builders of hope. Their prayers become coverings for their families. Their words become seeds planted in the hearts of youth. Their example becomes a reminder that dignity, discipline, and compassion are not outdated virtues, but timeless pillars of a meaningful life. In their smile, a young person sees reassurance. In their silence, a young person senses stability. In their wisdom, a young person finds direction. Old age is not the withdrawal of purpose, it is its pinnacle. God honors those who use their remaining years to lift up the next generation, ensuring that their legacy continues not as a memory, but as a living force shaping the future. As the journey of life stretches forward and the years gather quietly behind us, there comes a moment when God calls us to pause and listen closely to the voice within, the voice that warns us against the silent burden of regret. Regret is not born in old age, it is built slowly, piece by piece, through the dreams we postpone, the forgiveness we withhold, and the words we leave unspoken. God does not wish for any soul to arrive at the final chapters of life carrying such weight. Instead, He urges us, long before our steps grow slower, to confront what we fear, to heal what we have broken, and to pursue what we once believed was impossible. So many people reach old age and look back wishing they had dared to live more fully. They remember the dreams they tucked away because of fear, doubt, or the opinions of others. But God reminds us that life is too short to silence the voice of purpose within us. He whispers to our hearts that every dream He placed inside us was meant to be lived, not buried. As time passes, He warns us not to settle for a life half-lived, not to surrender our calling to the pressures of a world that often discourages courage. For when old age arrives, it brings with it the clarity of hindsight, and God wishes that this clarity brings peace, not longing. Equally, God warns us against the heavy burden of unforgiveness. Many walk into their later years still holding on to bitterness, anger, or unresolved pain. But these emotions become chains that weigh down the spirit. God calls us to release them, not for the benefit of others alone, but for the freedom of our own hearts. Forgiveness is not forgetting, nor is it excusing. It is choosing peace over poison. It is choosing healing over hurt. It is choosing to move forward rather than remain trapped in the wounds of yesterday. When we forgive, we open the door for joy to return, for relationships to mend, and for the soul to rest. God also warns us about the danger of unspoken words, words of love, appreciation, apology, or encouragement that we intend to share one day. But life offers no guarantee of the perfect moment. He urges us to speak kindness while time allows, to mend relationships while hearts are still open, to tell our loved ones what they mean to us before silence becomes permanent. Old age should not be a season of wishing we had spoken sooner. It should be a season of gratitude for having had the courage to speak when it mattered. In this gentle warning lies a profound gift, the opportunity to live with intention now before regret becomes our companion. God wants our old age to be a harvest of peace, joy, and fulfillment. He wants our hearts to look back not with sorrow, but with gratitude for having lived courageously, forgiven generously, and loved completely. Through this divine warning, He invites us to shape a life that leaves behind no unfinished pages, no lingering bitterness, and no unlived dreams. As the seasons of life turn and the weight of years begins to settle gently on our shoulders, God sends us a quiet but powerful message, a call to inner peace. In our youth, we often move quickly, driven by ambition, emotion, and the desire to prove ourselves. In that haste, we collect wounds, conflicts, resentments, and unspoken frustrations. But as we grow older, God invites us to release what no longer serves our soul. Old age is not just a passage of time, it is a divine reminder that true strength lies not in holding on, but in letting go. Throughout life, anger and bitterness may have seemed justified. We may have felt wronged, misunderstood, or betrayed. We may have carried conflicts that lasted for years, or wounds that we kept hidden in our hearts. Yet God, in His wisdom, understands that such burdens cannot coexist with peace. He warns us that if we cling to these emotions into our later years, they will steal the joy that age is meant to bring. Old age is designed to soften the spirit, not harden it. It is a sacred phase where God asks us to finally put down the weapons of past battles and choose harmony over hostility. Inner peace is not the absence of problems, it is the presence of acceptance. It is the understanding that not everything in life will be perfect, not every relationship will mend the way we hoped, and not every chapter will close neatly. But peace comes when we surrender our desire to control every outcome and trust that God knows what is best for us. Old age teaches us that the world will not always give us justice, but God will always offer us healing. And healing does not begin outside, it begins within. There comes a point where we realize that anger only exhausts the heart, bitterness only clouds the spirit, and conflict only steals time. Time we no longer have in abundance. God whispers to us that our remaining years should be filled with calmness, compassion, and clarity. He encourages us to approach others not with judgment but with understanding, not with resentment but with forgiveness. He reminds us that the peace we seek cannot be found in winning arguments or revisiting old wounds. It is found in choosing to rise above them. Letting go does not mean forgetting what was done to us. It means refusing to let the pain define us. It means choosing freedom over suffering. As we grow older, God encourages us to look back not with rage, but with gratitude for the lessons learned. Every bruise became wisdom. Every tear became strength. Every conflict became a teacher. And now, with the wisdom of years, we are called to extend the peace we have found to others. In this sacred stage of life, Peace becomes our greatest wealth. It becomes the soft pillow on which our hearts can finally rest. The world may still be chaotic, but within us, God invites a calm that nothing can shake. Through letting go of bitterness, embracing forgiveness, and choosing compassion, old age becomes not a decline, but a spiritual rise, a step closer to God's gentle, eternal peace. As the body begins to slow and the strength of our youth fades, many fear that aging is a sign of loss of vitality, loss of usefulness, loss of identity. But God, in His profound wisdom, offers us a different truth. Old age is not a weakening of the spirit, it is its unveiling. It is in these quieter years that God reminds us that while the physical body may diminish, the spirit within us grows stronger, wiser, and more deeply rooted in purpose. Every wrinkle becomes a testimony of endurance. Every ache whispers the story of battles fought and won, and every slowed step reveals a depth of courage that only time can shape. In our younger years, we often confuse strength with speed, power, and outward energy. We believe that our worth is measured by how much we can do, how fast we can move, and how loudly we can speak. But as life progresses, God gently shifts our understanding. He teaches us that true strength lies not in the body, but in the soul. The spirit is where resilience is born, where faith is tested, and where purpose matures. Old age becomes the sacred season where the spirit, no longer overshadowed by the noise of youth, finally rises into its full power. With time, our perspective widens. We begin to see life differently, not through the lens of ambition, but through the lens of meaning. We recognize that the storms we once thought would break us actually strengthened the roots of our character. The disappointments that once brought us to our knees taught us humility and compassion. The losses that left us empty allowed space for deeper understanding. In this way, God uses the years to refine the spirit until it becomes unshakable. This inner strength is not loud or forceful. It is calm, steady, and deeply anchored in truth. There is a beauty in the aging soul that no youth can replicate. It is the beauty of patience learned through hardship, of wisdom carved through experience, of faith proven through countless tests. God allows the body to weaken so that we may rely more on the Spirit, so that we may learn to trust in what is eternal rather than what is temporary. For bodies fade, but the spirit grows brighter with every passing year. What once frightened us becomes less terrifying. What once angered us becomes easier to release. What once confused us becomes clear. This clarity is God's gift to those who have walked long and remained faithful. In old age, the soul understands what the mind could not grasp in youth. That life is not about the strength of our flesh, but the strength of our purpose. God reminds us that as long as we breathe, we have meaning. As long as our hearts beat, we are capable of influencing others. As long as our spirits remain alive, we still carry a light that the world needs. This is the true power of aging, not in what the body loses, but in what the spirit gains. Strength that cannot be measured in muscle. Courage that cannot be diminished by time. Faith that no storm can break. In these years, God lifts the soul to a higher place of understanding, allowing us to stand not on our physical feet alone, but on the unshakable foundation of an awakened spirit. As the final chapters of life approach, and the years behind us far outnumber the years ahead, God places a profound truth before us. It is not the length of our days that defines our worth, but the impact of our deeds. Too many people reach old age believing their value has faded simply because time has passed. But God does not measure greatness in years lived. He measures it in lives touched. Longevity may be a blessing, but legacy is a responsibility. It is the mark we leave on the world long after our names are forgotten, the influence that echoes through generations, even when our voices grow silent. When we are young, we often chase longevity. We try to prolong our days, preserve our youth, and cling to the idea of living longer. But as the seasons of life shift, God invites us to chase something greater, meaning. He reminds us that even a short life, lived with courage and kindness, can change the world more than a long life lived without purpose. Old age becomes a sacred moment to reflect not on how many years we have survived, but on what we have given, built, and shared. It is a gentle warning not to become so focused on the number of birthdays that we forget the value of our contribution. Legacy is built not through grand achievements, but through simple acts of love, through the compassion we show to others, the wisdom we pass down, and the courage we demonstrate in difficult times. It lives in the children we nurture, the people we encourage, the kindness we offer, and the truth we speak. A legacy is formed every time we choose forgiveness over resentment, hope over despair, and generosity over selfishness. God calls us to understand that these moments matter far more than the length of our days. As we grow older, we begin to see how life's smallest gestures create the deepest impact. A gentle word spoken during hardship, a prayer whispered for someone in pain, a lesson shared from years of experience. These become seeds planted in the hearts of others. And those seeds grow into strength, character, and courage in the next generation. This is how legacies are born, quietly, humbly, and faithfully. God reminds us that our true contribution is not stored in what we own, but in who we shape. Old age is also a reminder that legacy is intentional. It does not happen by accident. God urges us to examine our lives and decide what values we wish to leave behind. Do we want to be remembered for anger or for grace? For fear or for faith? For taking much or for giving much? Our choices in these later years become the final strokes of the painting called our life. Even now, even in old age, we can still choose to rewrite our legacy with acts of compassion and courage. In the end, God's warning is gentle but clear. Time will fade, but character will remain. Our footsteps may slow, but our influence can continue long after we are gone. And if we fill our days with love, humility, and service, then our legacy will shine brighter than any measure of longevity. Through the lives we touch, we live on. Through the good we do, our story never truly ends.